I didn't recognize her at first. Not because she looked different, though she did, in the way someone does when ambition burns out behind their eyes, but because I had trained myself not to look for her anymore. 5 years is a long time to forget someone who tore you in half, but not long enough to stop bleeding when you see their name printed on a sleek, backlit conference badge. Marla R. Danner, Strategic Director, Silvergate Ventures. There it was, hanging from her neck like a trophy. And there I was, standing in a corner of the Marriott ballroom next to a cheese tray I hadn't touched, trying not to hyperventilate into a branded cocktail napkin. She was surrounded by people, laughing, polished, powerful. She was everything I wasn't when she left. Everything she said I couldn't help her become. I had heard the speech like a script. Gareth, I need to grow. This job is once in a lifetime. You wouldn't understand what I'm trying to build. She was right. I didn't understand. Not back then, anyway, because I thought marriage was about building something together. I thought I was enough. I thought love could compete with a corner office and a six-figure consulting package. Spoiler, it can't. Not when your wife starts treating you like a pothole on her career path. But I'm getting off track. The point is, I wasn't supposed to be at that conference. My assistant signed me up. Said I needed to show face, build partnerships, whatever that means. I hadn't been in a room that crowded since the divorce. Most days I worked from a rented basement studio with 2 space heaters and a cracked Keurig. I'd launched a small data security platform, nothing sexy, but it kept me afloat, kept me distracted, kept me from drunk texting her when I missed the way she used to trace circles on my wrist while we watched bad TV. The funny part? My name was on the speaker list too, right below hers. I didn't even notice until I got to the registration desk and the woman behind the table said, "Oh wow, 2 Danners speaking at the same conference. You related?" I laughed. Too loud. Used to be. I mumbled, grabbing my badge like it burned. I spent the first 2 hours avoiding every hallway she might be in. I didn't even go to the opening panel. I sat in the hallway pretending to check my phone, trying not to bolt. But eventually, my slot came up. Small workshop. 40 people. Topic: surviving the cyber spiral. Security for scaling startups. Riveting stuff, right? She was in the second row. She saw me. I know because her pen slipped and fell from her hand. She didn't pick it up. She just stared. And I delivered that whole workshop like my soul was on autopilot. My mouth moved. My slides changed. But all I could see was her, still, expressionless, jaw set like someone watching their past crawl out of a grave. When I wrapped up, she didn't clap. She left. I thought that was it. End of story. Until I stepped out of the breakout room and found her waiting, alone, trembling, looking like someone who had just seen something they weren't ready for. "Gareth," she whispered. But before I could say a word, she broke. Right there, in the middle of the hallway carpet patterned with blue spirals and gold hotel logos. 5 years, and the first thing she gave me was a sob. What she told me next shattered everything I thought I knew about why she left. And it had nothing to do with her job. She cried like the hallway walls had closed in on her. I stood frozen, clutching my laptop bag like it was some kind of shield. People passed by, glancing, whispering, but no one stopped. Because who comforts a woman sobbing in front of the man she abandoned half a decade ago? "Please," she said through tears, her voice cracked, desperate, like she was chasing a moving train. "Can we talk? Not here. Just somewhere quiet." Against every survival instinct in my spine, I nodded. I don't know why. Maybe it was guilt, or curiosity, or the masochist in me that wanted to hear her say she regretted it all. Or maybe part of me, the broken part, still hoped she had some beautiful, tragic reason that would make everything make sense. We ended up in the corner of the hotel's rooftop lounge. No crowd, no noise, just the hum of distant traffic and a skyline drowning in orange dusk. I watched her rub her temples like she was trying to erase something, like the words were stuck inside her head and wouldn't come out. "I know I don't deserve to ask you anything," she finally said, "but I have to tell you something. What I said back then, about leaving for my career, it wasn't the whole truth." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean it wasn't the whole truth?" She looked at me, raw and unfiltered, like the polished corporate mask she'd worn was gone. "They gave me a condition. The company, Silvergate. When they offered me the promotion, they made it clear, no baggage, no distractions. That meant no husband. They wanted me single. They framed it as image control, Like married women didn't climb the ladder the same way. I was naive. I wanted it too badly. So I agreed. I blinked at her. So you dumped me because your job told you to? Her silence was louder than any apology. She didn't deny it. She didn't try to dress it up. And honestly, that made it worse. You could have told me, I muttered. You could have just said that, instead of making me feel like I was some anchor holding you back. She flinched. I couldn't bear to admit how spineless I was. So I blamed you. That stung. Not because it was new. I'd always suspected something deeper, but because hearing her say it out loud ripped the last bit of dignity I'd been clinging to. All those nights wondering what I lacked. All those therapy sessions trying to convince myself I wasn't worthless. She made me believe I was the problem, when really, I was just an obstacle on her corporate resume. I had to see you, she said softly. When I saw your name on the program, I almost didn't come. But I couldn't resist. And now, seeing you like this, seeing how far you've come, it's killing me. Oh, so now she wanted to cry about it. 5 years too late. But then she said something that changed everything. There's more, Gareth. Something I've never told anyone. Something I didn't know how to live with. And the way her voice dropped, it wasn't regret I heard. It was fear. I leaned in. What are you talking about? She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. No address. No return label. Just my name. In her handwriting. I stared at it like it might explode. I was supposed to mail this to you 5 years ago. I took it, hesitating. My name looked unfamiliar in her handwriting now, like it belonged to someone else. Inside was a single photo, and on the back, a date. A very specific date, exactly 1 month after she left me. What is this? I asked, already dreading the answer. She looked at me with eyes red from crying, her hands trembling. That's the day I found out, she whispered. And the day I made the worst decision of my life. She stood up before I could press her. I'll tell you tomorrow. Meet me at the coffee bar downstairs at 8. I promise I'll tell you everything. Then she walked away, leaving me with a photo I didn't understand and 1,000 questions clawing at my chest. I should have walked away. I should have ignored the photo, blocked her number, gone back to my booth and pretended she never resurfaced. But I didn't, because the photo wasn't just confusing. It was terrifying. I didn't sleep that night. I must have stared at that photo for hours, flipping it over again and again like the answers were hidden in the grain of the paper. It wasn't even a remarkable picture, just a blurry shot of a woman walking out of what looked like a clinic. Her face was turned away, but her hair, her posture, God, it looked exactly like Marla. And the date scribbled on the back? 1 month after she left me. Why would she send me this? What did it mean? Was it her? Was it someone else? Was it connected to me? I paced that hotel room like a caged animal, going over every possibility I could think of. None of them made sense. And yet every scenario left me with the same pit in my stomach. Whatever secret she was hiding, it started there. By the time 7:50 rolled around, I was already downstairs at the hotel cafe, clutching a bitter coffee that had long gone cold. The place was mostly empty, save for a few conference-goers in suits talking too loud about nothing that mattered. I kept checking the door. And checking. And checking. She was late. Of course. At 8:14, she walked in. Same coat. Same tired eyes. No makeup. No armor. She slid into the booth across from me and didn't say a word at first. Just looked down at her hands like they were stained with something she couldn't scrub off. I was pregnant, she said. My brain stopped. Like, just stopped. I don't know what I expected her to say, but it wasn't that. Back then, I managed to ask, barely breathing. She nodded. I found out a few weeks after I moved to DC. I was sick. At first, I thought it was stress. Then, I took the test. I sat there, paralyzed. My thoughts were running 100 miles an hour, but crashing into each other like a 12-car pileup. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. She looked up. Because I lost it. And just like that, everything dropped out from under me. I didn't know what to do, she continued, voice trembling. I was alone, scared, and I knew I'd thrown away everything we had. I convinced myself it was better if you never knew. That way you wouldn't hate me. But I do, I said without thinking. I do hate you. The words landed hard between us. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just swallowed it. I deserve that, she said softly. But that's not the worst part. I leaned in, barely able to process the first part. There's more. She nodded, then reached into her bag and slid another envelope across the table. This one was sealed. Heavier. I didn't open it. What is it? I asked. Her voice cracked. Proof that everything you thought about me was wrong. Then she stood up. Again, like she always did when things got hard. Don't read it here, she said, backing away. Read it alone. And when you do, you'll understand why I came back. I stared at that envelope long after she disappeared into the lobby crowd. I should have tossed it, but I didn't, because part of me already knew. Whatever was inside that envelope would break me again. I didn't open the envelope right away. I carried it with me for hours like it was radioactive, tucked into my coat pocket like it might leak something toxic into my bloodstream if I looked too closely. Every time I reached for it, my fingers hesitated. What could possibly be inside that would make her show up after 5 years, cry in front of strangers, and admit to things she swore she'd buried? It wasn't until nearly midnight that I gave in. I was back in my room, sitting on the edge of the bed with the conference schedule tossed aside, and the TV playing some muted rerun in the background. I cracked the seal with shaky hands, half expecting to find a confession, maybe old ultrasound photos, maybe. I don't know. Something dramatic. But what I found made no sense at first. A copy of a hospital file. Scanned. Highlighted. Patient, Marla R. Danner. Date, August 17th, 5 years ago. Procedure, emergency dilation and curettage following incomplete miscarriage. Notes, complications noted. Unusual hormone levels. Patient advised of follow-up testing. There was a second page. Lab results. Blood work. Something about genetic markers. I didn't understand half of it. But the final line was underlined in pen. Marla's pen. I recognized the tilt of the letters. Patient advised of rare chromosomal anomaly. Future pregnancies not recommended without genetic counseling. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. I couldn't even blink. She hadn't just lost the baby. She'd lost her ability to ever try again. That's why she ran. That's why she never told me. I felt something inside me crack wide open. I thought I'd been the one abandoned, the one betrayed, the one who was left behind for some heartless career ladder. But now this? She wasn't just protecting her career. She was protecting me from a future that was already broken before it started. But even as I sat there, drowning in this new truth, something still didn't sit right. Why now? Why tell me all this now, after so much time had passed? And then I saw it, tucked inside the folder, almost hidden between the pages. A business card. Not hers. Dr. Harold Beckett, Fertility and Genetic Counseling, Silvergate Medical Partners. And on the back, scrawled in blue ink, ask him what he told me last month. Not 5 years ago. Last month. I sat straight up. This wasn't just a guilt trip. This was active, recent, still unfolding. And I was suddenly very sure of one thing. Marla didn't come here just to apologize. She came because she was scared of something. Or someone. The next morning, I found myself staring at the glass door of a private medical suite I had no business walking into. The name on the brass plaque made my stomach twist. Dr. Harold Beckett, Genetics and Fertility Specialist. I had barely slept. I kept picturing that scribbled message on the back of his business card. Ask him what he told me last month. It wasn't just a breadcrumb. It was a flare, fired in the dark. I didn't have an appointment. I didn't even have a plan. I told the receptionist I was an old patient of Dr. Beckett's and needed to clarify something urgent. She glanced at my badge from the conference, hesitated, then typed something into her system and gave me a slow nod. He's on a short break between sessions. 5 minutes, tops, she warned. The office was sleek, silent, and colder than I expected. Dr. Beckett looked nothing like I'd imagined, mid-60s, calm, a face that had seen too many breakdowns to be surprised by much. But when I mentioned Marla's name, something shifted behind his professional smile. A flicker of caution. I'm her ex-husband, I said before he could ask. We reconnected at a conference. She gave me your card. I slid it across his desk, watching his expression like a hawk. He glanced at the card, then at me, then leaned back in his chair. I see, he said. And what exactly are you looking for, Mr. Danner? She told me about the miscarriage, about what you discovered afterward, the chromosome issue, the warning about future pregnancies. He nodded. Yes, that information is in her file. It was a difficult diagnosis. I took a breath. But what about last month? She said you told her something. Something new. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I can't disclose confidential medical. She told me to ask you. I interrupted, my voice sharp and rising. She wrote it down. So spare me the policy. He paused. Then, slowly, he pulled a file from his drawer. He didn't open it, just rested his hand on top. I won't show you anything, but I will say this. Your ex-wife came to see me again recently. She had another test done, a private one, outside of Silvergate's insurance system. I felt my skin go cold. What kind of test? He hesitated, then said, paternity. The room spun. I blinked. I what? He looked at me with the same cautious pity you'd give someone standing on the edge of a ledge. Marla never told you about a man named Avery Cross, did she? No, I said immediately. The name meant nothing. Until it did. Dr. Beckett gave a tight nod. He was her boss. The man who pushed for her transfer to D.C. The one who insisted she remain unattached. I swallowed hard. My throat burned. They had an affair? She didn't tell me everything, he admitted. But when she came back last month, she said she needed to know something with certainty. She'd recently reconnected with someone from her past. Someone who'd made claims. She feared they were lies, or worse, part of something larger. And she needed to know if her medical history had been tampered with. I blinked. Tampered? He nodded, gravely. She believed she might have been misled about her condition, or even drugged during that period. And she had reason to believe Mr. Cross had something to do with it. My breath caught. All this time, I thought she left because she was chasing success. But what if she had been pushed, manipulated, threatened, lied to? And what if the miscarriage wasn't natural at all? I left that office in a daze. Nothing made sense anymore. Every assumption I'd made for 5 years was cracking. Marla hadn't just left me. She may have been running for her life. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't even know if I wanted to see her again. I just showed up outside her hotel room like a ghost that hadn't figured out how to move on. My knuckles hovered in the air before knocking, my whole body screaming at me to walk away. But then the door opened before I even touched it. She must have been expecting me. Marla didn't look surprised, just tired. She stepped aside wordlessly, letting me in, and for a moment it felt like we were back in our old apartment again. Tense air, unspoken things pressing against the walls, the kind of silence that meant something terrible had happened, but no one was ready to say it out loud. I saw Beckett, I said. She nodded. I figured you would. I pulled the business card from my pocket and tossed it on the table. He told me about Avery Cross. She winced at the name. That man destroyed me, in ways I didn't understand until it was too late. I sat down across from her, arms crossed. So what was it, Marla? An affair? Was that why you really left? She shook her head. It wasn't like that. At least, not how you think. You're going to have to be clearer than that. She looked me in the eyes for the first time that night, and I swear, there was something in her expression I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not sorrow, something closer to fear and hatred. Avery was never just my boss. He was the architect of everything. The offer, the relocation, the pressure to leave you, the NDA I signed, the diagnosis from the company clinic. What diagnosis? I asked, already knowing the answer. The miscarriage, she said. The hormone treatment they gave me before I left. I think it caused it. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought it was just the stress. But after what Beckett told me last month, I know now they gave me something. Something that would keep me compliant. I felt sick. You're saying they poisoned you? To control you? She nodded. They controlled everything. The career path, the doctors I could see, even the friends I was allowed to socialize with. It wasn't just a promotion, it was a grooming process. They were molding me into the perfect executive weapon. No attachments, no complications, no family. I stood up, pacing. My heart was racing like it was trying to break out of my chest. Why are you telling me this now? Because he's still watching me, she whispered. I froze. Who? Avery. I laughed bitterly. I thought he was just some twisted exec. He was, she said. Now he runs an entire shadow consultancy for companies that want to keep their executives optimized. That's what they call it. And I'm not the only one. There were others, women in different cities. Some of them disappeared. I stared at her like she'd gone insane. But the thing is, I believed her. Because I remembered how quickly she changed the moment she got that job. How robotic her voice became. How cold. How unlike herself she was in those final weeks. And then I remembered something else. The envelope. The photo of the woman outside the clinic. Was that you in the picture? I asked. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. That wasn't me. Then who was it? Her voice cracked. My sister. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mind couldn't even compute the sentence. My sister. It echoed like an alarm that wouldn't shut off. Your sister? I finally said, barely above a whisper. Why would you send me a photo of your sister outside a clinic? Marla sat down slowly, as if gravity had just doubled. Because she's the reason I said yes to Silvergate in the first place. The reason I left you. I stared at her, waiting for that to make sense. It didn't. She was already working for them, she continued. Before me. I didn't know it at first. They recruited her while she was still doing grad work. Psych profiling, corporate conditioning strategies, all this messed up psychological manipulation crap. She was their golden child. They offered her a future, and she took it. And then she recruited me. I sat down without realizing I had. My knees were weak. Are you saying your sister was involved in pushing you out of our marriage? Marla nodded. She said if I didn't take the offer, she would. They needed someone to fill the role, but they wanted someone already emotionally fractured. Someone with just enough motivation to be reshaped. She convinced me that I wasn't enough without that job, that we weren't enough. She fed me all the language, all the poison. And the clinic? I asked. Why was she there? Because after I lost the baby, she took over my contract. Not the job itself. She wasn't public-facing, but the internal experiments, the health monitoring, the chemical tracking, the fertility testing. She volunteered to be part of it. And by the time she wanted out, it was too late. I swallowed hard. Did she survive? Marla hesitated. She went missing 2 months ago. The room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. Marla pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of a police report. Missing adult. Name, Isla Danner. Last seen outside Silvergate's internal medical lab. She was scared, Marla whispered. The last time we spoke, she told me she discovered something. A list. A record of people who'd undergone off-the-record procedures. Hormonal tampering, psychological suppression, even sterilization. Not just women. Men too. Executives. Politicians. Investors. All done under the guise of corporate optimization. And you think I was one of them? She shook her head. Not directly. But you were collateral. Every decision I made that hurt you was because I was already under their thumb. I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd believed for years, that she left because I wasn't enough, that our marriage ended because I couldn't give her what she wanted, was unraveling in real time. But it wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was manipulation. A controlled demolition of our life, engineered by people who treated human connection as a liability. And now, I asked, my voice hoarse, what do they want from you now? Her hands trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out one final item. A flash drive. I copied the list, she said. Names. Dossiers. Everything Isla found before she vanished. I've kept it hidden, but they know someone took it. I stared at it. That tiny piece of plastic held the weight of 5 years of confusion, grief, betrayal, and now, something far more dangerous. They're coming for it, she said. And if I disappear too, you'll know why. I looked at the flash drive in her palm, and I realized I wasn't just part of her past anymore. Now I was part of whatever storm was about to hit. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't grief keeping me awake, it was purpose. 4 or 5 years I lived in the wreckage she left behind, thinking it was my fault. I blamed myself for not being enough, not being ambitious, not being able to hold on to her when the world pulled her away. And now, in the final hours of that conference, I finally understood the truth. It was never about me. Not really. I was just the casualty of a much bigger war being waged in secret, behind corporate doors, behind carefully managed smiles, behind performance reviews and optimization targets. But now I had the list, the evidence, and more than that, I had my voice back. Marla and I spent most of that morning reviewing the files. Names we recognized, names we didn't. CEO spouses marked as emotionally compromising, managers red flagged for prolonged attachment, private therapy logs flagged by third-party HR consultants. It was worse than we thought, and it had been going on for years. We made the decision together. Not out of revenge. Not even out of justice, really. Just clarity. It was time someone told the truth. The encrypted files were sent to 3 separate journalists, anonymously. One had already covered whistleblower stories in the tech world. Another had exposed a cover-up in a pharmaceutical merger. The third, a mid-tier blog that had broken a major Silicon Valley ethics scandal 2 years earlier. We didn't attach names. Just a trail. Enough to start a fire. And then, we walked away. Marla checked out of the hotel before sunrise. She left a note, just 4 lines. I'm leaving the country for a while. You deserve peace. I hope I can earn mine too. M. I stared at those lines for a long time. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But I didn't. Because this time, it wasn't abandonment. It wasn't betrayal. It was release. I walked out of that hotel feeling lighter than I had in years. Like I'd finally closed a chapter one never thought I'd survive. 6 months later, I got an email. No subject line. No message. Just a photo. It was Marla, sitting at a beach cafe somewhere far from here. She looked healthy. Freer. Her hair was shorter. She was holding a book. Smiling. Next to her, on the table, was a small envelope with my name on it. I'll never know if she actually mailed it. I don't need to. Because I already have what I needed. Peace. And maybe, just maybe, forgiveness.